Hey guys, Spud here, as always, and today we're at a Royal Daimar Air Force FARP just outside of the Palmyra oil fields to talk about some of the fantastic additions that came to DCS World with the latest 2.9 update. Now I'm sure a lot of you guys have been wondering where I've been now that I haven't posted for about a month or so. But not to worry, I've just been deep in airline training, and by a stroke of luck, I was home for a little R&R when the 2.9 update dropped earlier this morning. And I'm sure all of you guys out there have been keeping abreast of all of the news for this very game-changing update. But as a DCS World content creator, I have to of course hop on in and give my 2 cents as well. Of course, as I'm sure all of you guys know, this update comes with it a number of very game-changing additions to DCS World that really brings DCS kicking and screaming into the 21st century, as it were, and gives us a bunch of new tools that kind of bring DCS World graphical features and back-end features up to par with some of the latest AAA releases out there from much larger developers than Eagle Dynamics, which is absolutely fantastic. So of course, the one that you guys are all most interested in is probably going to be the addition of DLAA and DLSS from Nvidia. In fact, the splash loading screen when you first open up DCS World now shows an Nvidia logo that shows you that there is a bunch of Nvidia source code now embedded into DCS World. So what is DLSS? It is deep learning super sampling. Essentially, it's a way for your graphics card to render the world in the video game you're playing, not just DCS World, but anything, Cyberpunk or Call of Duty or whatever, at a lower resolution, and then use AI to then upscale that resolution to the native resolution of your monitor. So that way you get the increased performance of rendering the scene at a lower resolution and then upscaling that scene to that native resolution of your monitor, which is very significant, especially if you're playing on maybe a lower end system than some of the higher end PCs that are on the PC hardware spectrum. So how to turn on DLSS within DCS World, of course, is very simple. All you got to do is come to your options, and then under anti-aliasing, make sure you set DLAA for deep learning anti-aliasing. And then for the upscaling portion of it, you want to set the upscaling option here to DLSS if you have an NVIDIA 20, 30, or 40 series card. Then, of course, DLSS performance/quality option here. I have this set to quality because I do, in fact, have a 3090 within my PC system. If you have a lower end card, you may want to change this to either balanced or performance or high performance mode in order to bring the actual resolution that it's rendering at further and further down to get an increase in performance. Now, as you reduce that rendering actual resolution, it's going to give a worse picture for you as it upscales more and more to get to your native resolution. So if you have a higher end card, definitely go for quality, but if you need extra performance from maybe a lower end spectrum card, then you're going to want to bring it down to the balanced or performance or high performance options. Or if you just want a much higher frame rate, then go ahead and bring that option on down. Another fantastic addition is the sharpening option here, which can allow you to adjust the sharpness of the picture in DCS World. A lot of the options I have here are from Glowing Amram's screenshot of his options page that he put out there. However, I also did my own tinkering to kind of take his metrics and then kind of make them work better for my system as well. He said that 0.6 is going to be the best for sharpening on the sharpening scale here. I've kind of found that as well. Things can definitely be too sharp and then lead to shimmering, or not sharp enough and lead to kind of blurry edges of things. So 0.6 is kind of also my sweet spot as well. Textures, terrain textures, shadows, all that stuff is going to be high, and maybe you could be able to actually move those to high now that we have DLSS, so your performance is going to increase regardless. Flat shadows blur, I have that set to off because I like nice sharp shadows now that we have the ability to have those now. Secondary shadows, definitely have those turned on. That's going to make the shadows from smaller objects within the world, such as vegetation, like the grass we have around us, or the citrus trees in the little grove out beyond the FARP here, show up and look much better. As well as the SSS for screen space shadows is also going to increase the viability and the kind of resolution of the shadows from these smaller pieces of the world around us, like these blades of grass or trees around us, things of that nature. And that's why we're flying a helicopter today in this short video, to show you guys just how fantastic the foliage around the maps now looks with these new options. Visible range, I had this set to ultra before, but now I can set it to extreme and still have fantastic performance thanks to DLSS. So definitely move that and bump that up and see what you can get from the new DLSS technology. This will also reduce the kind of popping in and popping out of terrain objects like trees, rocks, grass, things of that nature by setting this to a higher option. Civilian traffic, I have that set to off because the civilian traffic doesn't really make that big of a difference for me. Clouds, of course, ultra, definitely have that on ultra no matter what your system is. It makes the clouds look so much better. SSAO and SSLR are two options that I have off that were set to off before. They don't really give that much of a benefit graphics fidelity wise, unless you're taking like very nice screenshots like on the carrier deck at night with a wet deck. So definitely have those off because they can be a massive hit to your system's performance. Water, of course, I have to high. If you're a carrier pilot, definitely have that set to high. That makes the water around the carrier look just that much better. Lens effects, very negligible, if any, hit at all to your performance. I have that set to flare. Some people like the dirt effect or the flare and the dirt effect. I just like the flare effect personally. Heat blur, I have this set to low. Low and high doesn't really make a big difference visually for me, so I just set that to low to have a lower hit on my performance. Motion blur. I have motion blur off. I've played with this in the past, and I'm sure some of you guys have noticed that in some of my videos. Right now I have it off. I may turn it back on and play with it again later on. It does give a bit of a noticeable hit to your performance. You can also change the amount of motion blur now, which is fantastic. Depth of field, definitely have that off. It doesn't look that great, and it's a massive hit to your performance of your PC, even with DLSS so far, I've noticed. Screenshot format, I just have it set to PNG. That's the easiest format to work with and change the size of for things like thumbnail creation for you guys for the videos. Color grading. Color grading is a really fantastic and very cool new option. It allows us to change the color grading of DCS World and our gameplay on the fly with no hit to our performance. It just simply changes the color. The teal and orange options here are really nice. My favorite is teal and orange number 3, and I might even set that and leave that, but I haven't quite decided just yet. Red tint is interesting, maybe for some sort of like a zombie or alien kind of situation that somebody wants to make for a video. Blue tint is interesting as well. It's a little bit too much in my opinion. Sepia is, of course, sepia, great for, some World War II gun camera footage kind of situations. Cinecolor is kind of pink and weird. I'm not quite sure why anyone would really want that for DCS. Cinecolor 2 is kind of cool, kind of like an old filmy effect. And then Technicolor is definitely interesting as well. One of the things that, especially the blue tint option here, makes me really want, so Eco Dynamics, if you're listening, please put this in. It seems like it wouldn't be that too big of a deal now that we have color grading, would be please put in a temperature slider for the colors in DCS World. I tend to find that most of DCS World's color grading is a little bit too much on the warm side for me. I tend to like more on the cooler side of colors, and the blue tint is a bit too much in my opinion. But teal and orange 3, I think, help out a little bit, but we'll just leave it to not use for the rest of today's video. Clutter and grass, now that we have DLSS, guys, take these sliders and slide them all the way to the right to get the best details and scenery details, forest details, clutter and grass and forest visibility. Having these things set all the way to the right is going to reduce some of the pop in and pop out effects of trees, grass, rocks, bushes, shrubs, things of that nature. And it's especially going to be important for you guys who are helicopter pilots who like the low-level hell and all of the details of the ground and the terrains that DCS World has to offer. Gamma, for me and my screen and my eyeballs, I like to have it set to 1.9. I think Glowing Amram screenshot he posted, it was he either had it like 2.1 or 2.2, but for me, that's just a little bit too bright. 1.9 tends to be the perfect balance between the darkness of shadows and the lightness of objects in the terrain. I also find that DCS World's sun is a little bit too bright sometimes, so I tend to turn my gamma down a little bit, but that's totally up to you, of course. LOD switch factor is an awesome new addition that's going to be great for you guys who have a PC that's maybe on the lower end of the PC hardware spectrum, because it's going to allow you to fine-tune when, say, an object like a helicopter or a jet or a vehicle or a terrain object is going to switch between its high polygon up close, very nice looking model to a lower polygon further away kind of model. Because of course, if a jet is further away from you, like if you're in a BVR scenario, you don't need that jet to be rendered at perfectly awesome high fidelity detail, right? But if you're getting really close to him, maybe you're flying in formation with a wingman or you're in a dogfight with him and you're within guns range, then you want that more beautiful details to come out, and so that's going to stress your system more. This slider here allows you to switch and move kind of where that point is, where it goes from that lower detailed model to the higher detailed model, and that can make a big difference in terms of your performance as well. Anisotropic filtering, just leave that to 16x. That kind of increases the sharpness and crispness of the way different textures are rendered in. And that makes a big difference when it comes to things like the lines on a runway or like the big H on a helipad. That'll just make that a lot more crisp and easier for you to see from further away and make it look a lot nicer. Terrain object shadows, just put that to default for sure. Cockpit global illumination, I leave that to off. And then scale GUI here, this is something that was very, very annoying, but also kind of essential for a while there. Because I have a high resolution monitor, it made a lot of the buttons and text and things like that in the DCS World GUI, like the mission editor, way too small. So I had to blow those up to the 1.25 option, but that kind of led to a lot of weirdness when it came to the lineup of text and the lineup of buttons and things like that. And now that's been fixed, so that way those of us with a higher resolution monitor are going to be able to read things in very text-rich environments like the mission editor a lot easier. So that's very fantastic. Another fantastic addition to DCS World has been the change in the voice chat radio and making it far more realistic. And I think that DCS World, or I should say Eagle Dynamics here, is really going for kind of replacing SRS. And from the kind of server admin perspective that I have in working with the Fox 3 guys, as well as kind of creating missions and adminning those missions, having SRS kind of be replaced with something that's just as good with the same kind of level of realism within DCS World instead of in a separate program is going to make the actual admin of missions and the admin of servers so much easier for all of you guys out there who do that kind of work. And hopefully it's going to be something that most players are going to have no problem changing over to. Of course, I still love SRS. I still love the developers of SRS. And when SRS is finally kind of taken over by this new options available to us in DCS, we're definitely going to have to give SRS a funeral of a lifetime. That's for sure. Probably a couple missing man formations and definitely a couple 21 gun salutes. So another really cool addition to DCS World is the cinematic / GoPro view that has been labeled so-called by Eagle Dynamics. And this allows you to essentially think of it as mounting a GoPro somewhere on the airframe of your helicopter or your aircraft or even a vehicle, so that way you can get some really cool cinematic shots. So all you have to do to get to this view is hit right control and F2, And this view is controlled via the mouse for moving it around. You can also use track IR to move the view around as well. But you're going to want to use the WASD keys and the Q and E keys to move this view around. So let's zoom in a little bit here. And let's say we want to mount a GoPro right on top of the right engine nacelle of our AH64. So we'll kind of move the view out here. We can kind of slide it over, slide it in. And then using the Q key, we can move it down a little bit. We'll slide it in a little bit more. And why don't we zoom it in just a hair more. There we go, right there. That's pretty cool. That'll be a cool kind of view for us as we're flying around in our helicopter. And so before, you would have to use, for a view such as this, you'd have to use the F4 view. And so then you'd move it around in more or less the same way, get a cool shot that you wanted. Then for those cinematographers that are out there, they then have to go, say, back to the F2 view or back to the cockpit view. And when you go back to F4 view, your view is gone. You have to then move around to get back to that really cool shot that you had set up. No longer is this the case. All you got to do, go back to right control F2, and your view where you set it is now saved for the rest of the mission. Until you quit out of DCS World and then reload in a new mission or a new track file, then this view will be reset to its original position. So let's go ahead and try moving it over to the left engine nacelle. Why not? And then if we go to, say, F2 view, go back to the cockpit, maybe even go to the F3 view, and then if we hit right control, F2, boom, we're right back to that last saved position, and you're good to go for getting that very cool shot, making it much, much easier for all of those cinematic makers in DCS World out there. All right, guys, so with that, why don't we go ahead and hop into a hot started Apache here, and we'll talk about all of the new fantastic immersion increasing additions to the way that helicopters now interact with the environment around them with their downwash. So let's see how long this takes, and hopefully we won't crash DCS World doing this. And hit OK here. This kind of like ka-chunking motion here, switching between aircraft in a single player mission, tends to make me nervous as to will it actually crash DCS World or not. All right, looks like it didn't, so that's fantastic. I also have noticed that kind of the stability of DCS World has increased quite a bit for us, and as well as some of the DLAA, the deep learning anti-aliasing from Nvidia, has made things around the cockpits as well as the external models of our helicopters look that much better, which is really, really nice. Even if you're not going to be using DLSS, DLAA is still a fantastic option when it comes to anti-aliasing, and it's much easier on performance than MFAA or MSAA or other legacy anti-aliasing systems that there are. So even if you're not going to use DLSS because you have a super high-end system, using DLAA is going to be a fantastic option and make everything look really great for you in DCS. So let's go ahead and push up our throttles here to the fly position. And my brain is about to break because I'm going to try and make a video commentary for you guys while also trying to fly the Apache. So excuse me for my kind of verbal weirdness that's about to happen. So we can see here that the grass is interacting with the downwash of our rotors. We're kind of at an idle position. Our collective is fully pushed down, so there's very little to no angle of attack on our rotor blades at the moment. And we can see that reflected by how much the grass is moving. Of course, there's still a lot of air movement from that big rotor disc, but as we pull up on the collective, you'll see the grass start to move a bit harder as we increase the downwash from our rotor blades. So of course, you guys out there who are Apache pilots know, just very gently pull up on the collective, pull up, take the parking brake off by tapping on the toe brakes, and we can see here that with about 41% power on the collective, look at the grass, and look at the dust that we're now kicking up. The grass is really moving around, tons of dust being kicked up. Big sorry to the soldiers that are around us and the guys in the Humvees and whatnot. And as we pull up more and more and more, you're going to see the grass move faster and faster and faster. And I'm just giving the helicopter what it needs. A little bit of left cyclic there, a little bit of aft cyclic, a little bit of right cyclic, trim it out. And then we're just going to slowly and gently come up off the ground. Oop, kind of sliding backwards there a bit. Well, that wasn't the best takeoff in the world, but it works. So at least it was safe. Like I said, my brain kind of breaks when I'm trying to make a video and fly the Apache at the same time. There we go. We'll kind of trim it out a bit. And you can see the grass, even with a lot of downwash from our rotors, as we get further away from the grass, we kick up less dust, and the grass starts to move a little bit less. So why don't we try and move kind of over towards the citrus grove next to our fart pier, and we'll try and show you guys how our downwash now interacts with trees, not just grass. And we can see also that the grass moves along with us as we move our helicopter across the ground. See if we can get down a little closer to the trees here for you guys. There we go. You can see those citrus trees starting to move down there. Very cool, very immersion enhancing. And I personally, even with just flying with it for just a little bit, having this little bit of environmental effects for me almost gives me a feeling of having a bit more depth perception on a flat screen, because I can kind of judge, seeing the grass move in my peripheral or the trees move in my peripheral, how high I am above the ground without necessarily looking at my instruments, which may have a slight delay in them. So it's one of those things that increases immersion that I actually think will make it easier for helicopter pilots in DCS World, because it's one of those things that your brain expects to be there that just wasn't there in DCS before, but now is, that makes flying a heck of a lot easier. Alright, beautiful. Let's try and slow down a little bit, show you guys some movement on some different kinds of trees, different kinds of environments here. My brain's kind of flying on overload right now, trying to make a commentary as well as fly the helicopter at the same time. When I'm not doing this, I can usually fly the helicopter a lot better. Alright. So you can see a bit of movement down there in the grass and the trees. And as we get lower, more and more movement. And that kind of increase in the interaction with the foliage of our downwash and the increase in the dust really gives me a fantastic kind of gauge of just how high I am, increasing that immersion factor and really helping me fly the Apache better, which is something that I wasn't really expecting from this feature. I wasn't really expecting to be like, wow, trees moving makes me fly better. Very cool stuff. So why don't we go ahead and set the Apache back down in our FARP, and we will close out the video. All of the skins in the collection for our fictional Operation Burning Sands campaign are available to download for free on my community Discord server for anyone, regardless of whether you've participated in a mission or not. If you just like the skins and want to fly around with our cool fictional nation, you're more than welcome to do so. We'll just kind of slide back over next to these captured Pirani Mi-24s that are now in use by the very secretive 1st Special Operations Squadron. And then of course we've also got another Apache right over there. We'll see how well I can do here. Got a bit of wind pushing us around, but not too much. The shadows look so much nicer as well. The shadows also help you kind of judge how high above the ground you are. And as I'm trying to talk and make a video at the same time, I can really feel that I am over-controlling my helicopter. Always just a little bit more tense on my muscles when I'm flying in front of you guys. See how we do here. Scoot up just a hair. Doing okay. Doing okay. Probably going to get into ground effect here. Kind of going to give me a little bump up. Definitely don't be afraid of the ground effect, and don't react too quickly when you get into that ground effect, and you'll be just fine. Pull up the nose a little bit. There's tail wheel down first, probably not the best landing in the world, but it was safe, and we're on the ground back here with no damage. And you can see as I push down the collective there, the grass stopped moving quite as harshly. Just a really awesome immersion factor there, guys, that I think you all are going to really, really love. So stay tuned for the next video where we're going to take a quick and dirty look at the 2-seat Mirage F1BE, a fantastic new addition to the collection of the Mirage F1s, and I'm sure you guys all know how much I love the Mirage F1 at this point. So we'll see you in the next one, guys, and fly safe out there. And like I said before, I've just been at airline training, and I am not leaving you guys because I love the DCS World community. I love DCS, Evil Dynamics, and of course, flying in their wonderful creation. So we'll see you in the next one, guys, and fly safe out there.